But how do you know how much gold is really worth? And it's actually pretty simple. I mean, this is fiat money.
Yep.
This is honest, sound money. They're both money. They're just the flip sides of the coin. Well,
Yeah.
how is this stuff created? It's created via debt. I think with spot gold, to see that in the next 3 months, somewhere above 3,000 an ounce, maybe like 31, 3,200 would not be surprising. But I could also see, I don't know, there is a shift in the trend because I see a lot more inflation coming in.
Gold prices are uniquely positioned to rise regardless of the US dollar's movements in the coming weeks. At the same time, silver's ongoing structural deficit and strong physical demand could make it the ultimate long-term winner. The US dollar index is on track for a 0.7% weekly gain, which typically makes gold more expensive for foreign buyers. Investors are now closely watching the upcoming Personal Consumption Expenditures (PCE) data, the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge, for clues on future monetary policy. Historically, gold has only performed this well alongside a strong S&P 500 twice before. The first instance was in 1933, when the U.S. government revalued gold, and the second was in 2009, during the most significant round of quantitative easing at the time. According to Lynette Zang, founder and CEO of Zang Enterprises, public confidence in the U.S. dollar is barely holding on. While there was significant optimism when the current administration took office, much of that optimism has now faded as economic realities set in. She believes the most critical battle today is the restoration of sound money in the global financial system, and she views the present moment as the best opportunity to achieve this goal. The demand for physical gold is surging, particularly in New York, the global hub for futures trading. This has resulted in delays in retrieving gold bars from London vaults, where the physical gold market is concentrated. Additionally, concerns about potential tariffs on gold imports drive stockpiling efforts in the U.S. The New York-based commodity exchange inventory has surged by over 70% since the beginning of the year. Zhang emphasizes that this is the most challenging and opportune time for change. While she strongly advocates for a return to sound money, she warns that many people misunderstand the fundamental difference between a backed and a pegged currency. Actual backing means that individuals must be able to exchange their currency for the underlying asset at will. If they cannot, the currency is pegged, offering no absolute value guarantee. We're about to explore the video, but first, subscribe and hit the bell icon to keep up with our newest uploads. Your feedback in the comments is always appreciated.
Well, timing is the biggest challenge of any technician, and I will say that, so it's kind of hard, but I definitely agree with you that I've been feeling a quickening and an eminence. And I think that what we're going to see is by June, we're going to see a lot faster inflation here in the US. And there's just this little thin layer of confidence left in the public's opinion of the currencies. So, it's hard. There was a lot of hopium when the current administration came in, but that seems to have evaporated and reality is beginning to set in. We just had the worst consumer confidence level since 2021, where we were still in the throes of the shutdown. And you're seeing on the spot markets, both gold and silver spiking as interest rates are declining, which is an indication. And we've had a inversion again in the 10-year yield. So, I mean, it feels to me like something very nasty this way is coming very soon. In some ways, I think it's the worst time to be a lot of things. And in other ways, I think it's the best time to be a lot of things. And I say that really clearly because the battle is to get sound money back in the global monetary system again. And I do believe, Francis, that this is our very best shot at it. And what I like to warn people about, because they're using backing and pegging interchangeably, right? So Zimbabwe is a great example of that, because presumably the ZIG was 40% backed, but it never came out in any kind of physical form, and you could not convert or pull out the gold that was in it. So therefore, they could do that 44% devaluation overnight because how can they be stopped? So here's the difference. And I hope all of your listeners just write this down and take it to heart, right? If something is truly backed, then you need to have the ability to convert it into that underlying asset and pull it out.
Yeah.
If you can't, it ain't backed, it's pegged, and
It's
it doesn't
derivative.
mean anything. You have nothing to ensure that it's really there. And so that's my personal battle, is getting actually currency backed by it, even if it's at a percentage that if I don't like what my government or my central banks are doing, I can walk in here's I can walk in with this and I can walk out with this. Because what gold really does to governments and central banks is it forces fiscal responsibility, so that what we're dealing with now, frankly, could not happen, period. End of discussion. So just keep that in mind, because we're going to hear an awful lot, or we are hearing an awful lot about the tokenization and these asset-backed securities. If they're really backed, you need to demand that you can pull and take possession of that asset at any given moment when you want to. If you can't, it's pegged. It doesn't mean anything.
For centuries, the world has operated with a dominant reserve currency, the currency used for most international trade and financial transactions. Historically, reserve currencies have belonged to powerful empires, such as Spain, France, and England, often backed by gold or other precious metals alongside the state's authority. While gold has long served as a hedge against inflation, it faces significant obstacles, including transportation, storage, liquidity, and supply constraints, that make it unlikely to replace the US dollar as the global reserve currency. Similarly, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies encounter challenges like liquidity issues, security risks, scalability limitations, and high energy consumption. Lynette Zang has distinguished between gold and alternative assets like Bitcoin. She explains that Bitcoin requires vast amounts of energy to be created, but that energy is ultimately expended. In contrast, gold permanently retains the energy and labor used to extract it. Gold is indestructible. Once it's pulled from the ground, the stored energy remains and can be used repeatedly, she emphasized. Now let's redirect our attention to a video.
When I'm looking at all of the circumstances, because also let me just kind of point out that the rise in the markets are also due to the massive amounts of new money that has been pushed into the system to reflate them so that you stay in there. I personally don't see anything bad for gold. I mean, it's gold. It's used in every single sector of the global economy. It's not rocket science. What that tells you is, out of everything, gold, and I'll put silver in there as well, because both of them are used in every single, I mean, it's used in space travel, it's used in food, it's used in electronics, it's used in solar, it's used in the financial system, it's used everywhere, dental, I mean, it's used everywhere, medical. So the demand, it has the broadest base of functionality and the broadest base of demand. This stuff has demand in one place. Even this stuff, dare I say it, it looks like a gold coin, but it's actually Bitcoin, because they want you to think of it as gold. It has use in one place. And I really wanted to bring up something that you said earlier to that point, which is, it takes energy and labor. It takes it to pull this stuff and this stuff out of the ground, right? But then that energy and labor is stored inside of the physical metal. And then that same energy is reused in wherever they're using the gold and the silver. And with gold, it's indestructible, which means that it can be in any form and it can be reused in any area. And I like to bring out my sterling silver flatware that I accumulated at yard sales over the years, because gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base, but this is in one place It takes tremendous amount of energy, not a lot of labor, but a lot of energy to create this. And that energy is used up. It is not used up in the gold and silver. It is held in there and then used again and again and again and again and again. I don't know. To me, this going into this fight, it's not even a penknife. It's nothing because it only has demand in one area. This is a bazooka. But keep in mind, there is gold and then there is gold. In the US, who has a long history, frankly, gold has been confiscated 3 times in the US. We only know about 33. And so people say, oh, wow. Well, you know what? If you look at the retirement plans, the IRAs, I can hold bullion. This is the only piece, well, and these are the only pieces of bullion that I actually personally own. This is what I can put in a retirement account, is a pre-33 coin that's the same gold content weight, right? But I can't hold this in an IRA. I can hold Bitcoin in an IRA. I can hold it, real estate. I can hold most anything else in an IRA, but I can't hold this. Why? Different classification. So I can't guarantee that the pre-33s would not indeed be confiscated again, but it's way too complicated and expensive and more than likely not worth it. So you have to be conscious of the gold and then the gold, but 100%. If they can get you to register any of your wealth, including, some of the antique pieces that I have here, right? And this was attempted in Greece when Greece was in trouble not that long ago, right? We're seeing it, right? These are precursors. So if you're holding all of your wealth on here and you're out there and you say, oh, gee, I really want that boat, or I really want this, or I want that, you end up spending your equity and you don't even realize that you're doing it. You are volunteering your wealth, which is exactly what inflation does. You're volunteering your work and your wealth for debt instruments. In this country, Federal Reserve note. Well, what's a note? That's a debt instrument.
Correct.
Right? And going back to the allegiances and how that's shifting, that means your wealth can shift anywhere in the world very, very easily. One world government, one world control.
Gold and silver continue to demonstrate their resilience and growing demand in both financial and industrial sectors, with gold uniquely positioned to benefit regardless of US dollar movements and silver's structural deficit pointing to long-term strength. Historical parallels suggest that gold thrives during periods of economic uncertainty and monetary expansion, as seen in 1933 and 2009. Meanwhile, increasing demand for physical gold has strained global supply chains, raising concerns about potential government interventions, including tariffs and even confiscation. As economic and geopolitical uncertainties persist, the debate over sound money intensifies, highlighting gold and silver's critical role in preserving wealth in an evolving financial landscape. Do you think gold could replace the US dollar as the global reserve currency, or are logistical challenges too grand? Join the conversation. Share your thoughts in the comments, give us a thumbs up if you found value in this video, and subscribe to stay engaged with our community.